Sometimes you'll want to call attention to items in a list, specific items in the list, or perhaps parts or portions of your website, maybe even form fields. And so you want to mark or flag certain items and call the readers or the viewers' attention to it in some special way. And so a label, a Bootstrap label, is like a tag that you apply to provide some meta information about the text or the control that it's next to. So you might use a label to denote things that are new about your web page or the products that you're selling. Maybe you can use them to differentiate the versions that introduced given features for your product. So V4 versus V3 and so on. So you can see that I've already taken the liberty of setting up my new web page, labelclasses.html, with the content from our template. You can pause the video and catch up with me if you like. And so to illustrate the idea of labels, we might have several items in paragraphs or in sentences, and I may want to call somebody's attention to the fourth item, in which case what we can do is add the item and then create a span tag. And inside the span tag, use the actual text you want for the label itself. And then we need to apply two classes. The first one is class is label, and then the second class is label-default. So this first one will provide the font and the styling and the color of the foreground, and then this will provide the background, and we'll look at several different variations for background colors in our labels. But now you can see the difference between the first three items and the fourth item on our web page. You see a nice little label there, and it's just by default. The default one is just a gray background with white bolded text, so it's a very high contrast view. Here I'm going to actually paste in an example that will allow us to use two labels for a given item, and here you'll notice that I want to make sure to add a space between the item itself and then the span tag. Otherwise, the label will be just right butted up against it. It'll be hard to read. And then I'm also, to kind of facilitate it, that again, these two span tags, I'm putting another space, but I'm hard coding the space and say always observe the fact that we have a non-breaking space in between these two span tags. So it's just a little programmer trick I picked up years ago to force the browser to give me a space. In this case, that space right there. But you can see that I can add as many labels next to each other as I want and put any text inside of them. They're best used for small little 1 or 2 word descriptions that you want to call attention to. There's an example in the help that uses a series of heading 1 through 6 elements, and to illustrate the fact that the tag itself, the label itself, will be size proportional to the element it's inside of. So in an H1, the label will be very large, and in H6, the label will be much smaller. Let me give this particular cell a little more room to breathe because I happen to know it's going to take some space. And there we go. You can see the largest label next to the H1 and the smallest next to the H6. All right, and then next up, we've looked at contextual colors many times. And so I'm going to create an unordered list, and then I'm also going to add into each item of the list a different background color. So here we have the label default, which we've been using. Here's primary, success, info, warning, and danger, just so we can see them all in action. All right, and I probably need to put spaces next to them. You can see how bad it looks whenever we don't have a space in between the label and the text itself. And then finally, there's another option that we can add, a third class that we can add to our labels that would give them a more rounded appearance on both the left and the right side. So they call these pills. So you can see that there's a round, almost half circle on either side, making it look like a pill. Okay. And just one last thing with regards to labels, they were around in version 3. And then there was also something else called a badge, but it looks like they've removed the badges. So if you need this style of functionality, I think the intent here is for you to just go ahead and try to use a label in those scenarios where you might have previously used a badge to denote the number of items relative to a particular tab or number of messages, things of that nature. Okay. Just wanted to point that out real quick. And that's pretty much all I've got to say about labels. And we'll continue on in the next video. See you there. Thanks.